So I've had a thought, and I've had this thought for years. I've thought about making a video out of it multiple times. I haven't figured out exactly if there is like a conclusion to this, and so I'm sort of making this as like an open question because I just don't know exactly how I feel about this. Spoilers for Mass Effect 3, by the way. If I go up if I mention any others, I'll put them on the screen now. But yeah, I want to use Mass Effect 3 as an example because it's indicative of a lot of the problems I have with a non-linear narrative, and not in the way that you're thinking. Now, I'm not going to talk about Mass Effect 3's controversial ending. I don't give a fuck. I'm mainly interested in a particular thing that it does. But there's one particular scene where I think that a lot of the issues that I have with the way that its narrative is designed come to a head all at once. Let me explain what I mean. Two of the coolest characters in the trilogy are Legion and Tali, right? They are different alien races. One created the other. Legion is a part of a synthetic race created in the likeness of the Quarians. This is all relevant, I promise. Long story short, these two characters are frequently at each other's throats, but they're both part of your team, and so they have to get along. And it's your job sometimes to make them get along. Something that the character Legion often struggles with is this question of like, are they real? Do they have a soul? Is the way that they phrase the question.
Recording timestamped from Creator Year 2485, 18th day of Loon Shao, New Moon. Mistress Hala Dama, unit has an inquiry.
What is it, 431?
Do these units have a soul?
Who taught you that word?
We learned it ourselves. It appears 216 times in the Scroll of Ancestors.
Only Quarians have souls. You're a mechanism.
Recording ends.
Was that the first time a Geth asked if it had a soul?
No, it was the first time a creator became frightened when we asked.
And the character Tali is not particularly interested in entertaining that question because it makes her very uncomfortable with her preconceived biases. Again, these personal conflicts exemplified by these characters are indicative of their entire culture, their people's general sentiment towards each other. And this tension finally comes to a head in a big scene in Mass Effect 3 where you as a player are basically forced to make a call. They pull a classic you can only save one situation. And it's very goofy. It's very over the top and silly because by choosing to save either Legion or Tali, over the characters' heads in the sky is their entire race. All of their ships pointed at each other, ready to blow each other up. And through story sci-fi contrivances, by saving Legion, you save the entire Geth species and kill all the Quarians. If you save Tali, you save all the Quarians and the Geth go extinct. You have to pick one character, and in doing so, one entire alien species. There is no correct choice here. There are only difficult bad choices, and the player is forced to choose what they see as the lesser of the two evils. Either way, as a player, you've probably grown quite attached to both of these characters by this point in the story, and so losing them is not going to feel great as a player, and seeing their entire species go extinct doesn't help. And it's one of the few times that Mass Effect actually does present the player with an interesting decision, because normally it adheres pretty strictly to its binary morality, which I'm not going to get too far into because I think we can all agree at this point that good or bad, do you want to save the world or do you want to kill a baby is not a very interesting moral question. But this scenario that the game presents to you is not a question of good versus bad. It's a question of bad versus bad, where no matter what you choose, you're gonna feel like shit. And that's the point, right? Because this is war. And war brings death and loss. My favorite thing about this is what happens if you choose to sacrifice Legion and the Geth, his people. You get this incredibly bittersweet moment. In my opinion, one of the best wrapped up loose ends of the trilogy. You shoot Legion, he realizes that it's not just him dying, it's his entire culture. Truly horrible. And as he dies, he can't help but ask Tali one final time whether he's a person. And it's in that moment, when it's too late, that Tali finally realizes that yes, he is.
I'm sorry, Legion.
Tali-Zora, does this unit have...
Yes. Yes, it does.
Oh, it's fucking brutal. It's great. Great writing, great performances, fantastic moment. I really like this moment. Or at least I would, except for the fact that I've been lying to you, and Mass Effect 2 is a fucking cowardly video game where if you do enough good guy or bad guy things, you can just skip all of this interesting conflict and tell one of the fucking entire populations of people up in the sky, hey guys, we gotta stop fighting, stop fighting! And then they just do. They just do, because you said a thing that was like really convincing. Somehow convincing enough for two species that have been warring for decades, or if not, longer. I don't remember the lore. I don't care. These are two cultures that are fundamentally opposed, and they have a lot of history. This is not the kind of conflict that can be solved by you saying, guys, what if we put our differences aside? What if we just got along? Fuck you! That's not how it works. I don't care if you're a pulpy sci-fi fiction movie. You're trying to be a video game for grown-ups. Okay, so that sucks, right? That fucking sucks massively, and I hate it. Mass Effect does this a lot. If you play the game in the most boring way possible, you are consistently rewarded with quote-unquote good endings, even though they're usually the least interesting narrative decision that a player could make. And that gets me thinking, by giving the player the choice, are you allowing them to cheat themselves out of a better narrative? And if so, should you do that? Like, I know for a fact that there is a certain sequence of decisions that I could make in the Mass Effect trilogy that would lead me to enjoying the narrative more, because it would hit beats that I find more compelling. And they are not the beats that I, as a player, most often chose, because I was mechanically incentivized to play the game a certain way, which usually involved being a generic good guy. And I think this goes beyond the whole binary morality side of things. Like, recently I played Until Dawn, and although it was like really technologically impressive, one of the biggest things that I kept asking myself all throughout its playthrough is, like, it's really cool that there are so many different ways that this story can unfold, but surely there's a best way for it to unfold, right? And I don't mean everyone lives. I mean, there is definitely an ideal way for this narrative to unfold in a way that makes the most sense for all of the characters. Like, in my playthrough, Matt got killed so nonchalantly. Like he just fell down a hole and then got put on a spike. That was it. And that was it. It's over. Same thing with Josh. When he died when I was playing as a different character. I failed to look around a level and find a particular object, and so he just dies. I'm pretty sure only 2 characters even talk about it because we're so late in the game at that point that like everyone else is kind of busy doing other shit in the narrative. And like, yeah, on the one hand, I know that's the point of the game, but on the other hand, that's not very satisfying. I don't think that's the most interesting or good way that story could have unfolded. And again, I can't help but feel that this design kind of undermines what could have been a more compelling narrative. And the only way to get around that would be for me to just fucking go back and play it again. And I'm not gonna do that. I have a life and a backlog full of dozens of other video games I need to play. When I was done with the game, the first thing I did was pull up YouTube and look up the best ending out of curiosity. I wanted to know what it would look like if I had done things differently, and I was not willing to play the whole game again in order to do that. I'm gonna be real with you. I wasn't crazy about the game, but that's besides the point. Those kinds of videos, the everyone lives, true ending, best ending, those types of videos wouldn't exist if it weren't for the fact that a lot of people couldn't be fucked to actually work for the best ending themselves. They just want to see what would have happened if they had played the game perfectly. I don't know. I feel like I think what I'm getting at here is that it doesn't seem to me like there's any way of creating a non-linear narrative structure without making a lot of concessions that could end up damaging the viewer or the player's experience. Kind of like how I guess, you can't make a video game, a piece of interactive media like a video game, without making concessions for things like pacing, right? Because if a player wants, they can just fuck off and look at a wall for 30 minutes, and that's not exactly an ideal way to play a video game for, unless you're playing The Witness or something, but that's the nature of the beast, right? Oh, another good example. Telltale, Walking Dead, Season 1. Remember whenever it gives you the choice to, like, you I think it was, like, Episode 2? Maybe it was Episode 1. Who cares? You have the choice whenever the zombies overrun the pharmacy that you're holed up at. It's like, oh, you can choose between Carly or Doug. Who the fuck is gonna save Doug? Like, what? Sure, okay, sure. Let's be generous. The game illustrates him as a logical, resourceful individual, the kind of guy who might actually be useful in a scenario like that of The Walking Dead. But let's be real here. That's not an interesting narrative choice. Obviously, the interesting choice is to go for fucking Carly, because she's the love interest, and she's good with a gun, and she's charismatic. Like, obviously, pick her! And like, this choice doesn't really fucking matter anyway, because no matter which one you choose, they die in, like, the next episode, so whatever. But like, even in a game like The Walking Dead Season 1, where I think its narrative is kind of fucking brilliant, this issue still comes up, where I firmly believe that there are better and worse choices a player could make that will lead into a more or a less interesting branching narrative. And I don't know, like, unless you're expecting players to, like, a lot of players to go back and replay the game just so they can see how smaller parts of it might differ, it feels like a lot of players, by nature of the way the game is designed, are going to have a suboptimal experience, and that I don't know. I think that sucks. Yeah, at this point, you can probably see why I was struggling to like find a point in all of this and turn it into anything more than a rant. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if there's anything that I have that is interesting to say about all of this, other than that when you make choices, you have to make concessions, and oh, bro, your fucking choices matter. But I don't know. If you guys have thoughts on this, I would be I would be curious to hear them. Please put them in the comments and subscribe for more awesome videos where I do shit like this.